My phone told me something this week that I didn't want to see. My screen time had increased by an hour and 35 minutes from the previous week. And the frustrating part, I keep telling myself I don't have enough time to finish my short story and script. Becoming a writer is one thing, protecting that identity, that's another. Because the moment you decide to take your writing seriously, the world starts competing for your attention. Notifications, comparison, endless advice about what you should be doing. And slowly, without realizing it, the time and focus you need to grow as a writer starts disappearing. The truth is this: you cannot build a serious writing life in fragments. Creativity requires protection. And if you don't guard the writer you're becoming, distractions will quietly dismantle them. Hello, fiction babes and storytellers. Welcome to Habits of a Writer, the podcast where we talk about the good habits that lead to a finished manuscript. I'm your host, Portia Levette, novelist, indie author of two books, and currently editing the next one. Today, we're talking about the habit of protecting your creative identity because there are three ways writers slowly lose the identity they're trying to build: distraction, too much advice, and visibility before the work is ready. Let's start with the one most of us resist: digital minimalism. And trust me, I'm speaking to myself on this one. When my phone told me my screen time had increased by an hour and 35 minutes, I felt the guilt. My app usage is highest on YouTube and the game Royal Kingdom. My phone literally offers tools to help me control it: screen time limits, focus mode, bedtime mode, and yet I ignore them because I want to believe I don't need help controlling myself. Now, some of that is work. I'm on Canva, posting on Instagram, making notes on Substack, engaging with other writers, and even getting ideas from ChatGPT. But let's be honest, all that does not account for the extra hour and 35 minutes. And I only notice it because I keep telling myself I don't have enough time in the day to finish a short story, a script, and everything else on my plate. The good news is that focus works the same way distraction does. When we intentionally redirect our attention back to the task in front of us, we begin to reclaim that time. Or as my mother used to say, we keep our eye on the prize. You see, if attention is the new currency, then scheduling is how we spend it intentionally. Because if you don't decide where your attention goes, something else will. Building a writer's life requires boundaries. Those boundaries become time blocks that tell both you and the people in your life, this matters to me. And we have to remember that protecting our creative time, that's not selfish, it's necessary. When I encourage you to stay a little longer with the story, that only works if you make time to sit with your writing. That doesn't mean isolating yourself from everyone permanently, but it does mean learning that no is a full sentence when something threatens the time you've set aside to create. Now, distractions isn't the only thing that can fragment a writer's identity. Another quiet threat is overconsumption of advice. A lot of my YouTube viewing is other authors, productivity videos, and planner content. And I could justify it by saying I'm learning. But at some point, watching videos about writing becomes a substitute for writing. Advice can be helpful. It can teach structure, but only writing teaches you your voice. If you watch 100 videos about how to write the first line of a novel, you'll hear 100 different opinions. And they'll all sound convincing, but none of them will matter until you sit down and write yours. Clarity comes from doing. You'll write that first line, rewrite it several times, and eventually find the version that feels right for your story. Advice can guide you, but the work is what develops your identity. Structure can be taught, storytelling is developed. And I also want to encourage you to stop listening to the voice in your head that tells you that you're not as good as the professionals you're watching. Remember what we talked about last week. Your creative identity is built on your repeated routines. Protecting that identity requires intention. So, We've talked about distractions. We've talked about consuming too much advice. Now, here's the third thing that can quietly dismantle a writer's focus: sharing your progress too early. We live in a time where visibility is treated like success. Post more, share more, document everything, build an audience while you're building the work. And there's nothing wrong with sharing your work, but there is a cost to constant visibility that writers rarely talk about. Visibility rewards performance, writing requires solitude. If you're thinking about how an audience will react to your story while you're still writing it, your attention is divided. And if visibility becomes the goal, the work quietly becomes secondary. This isn't about shaming the desire to share your journey. It's a reminder that the story is still the goal. How you develop your creative identity in private will eventually show up in the work itself. And if you share too soon, you run the risk of falling into the comparison game, comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. Every writer needs seasons of visibility and seasons of invisibility. Because if you don't decide where your attention goes, the internet will decide for you. Today, we talked about the three ways writers lose the focus needed to build their identity: distraction, too much advice, and visibility before the work is ready. All three compete for the same thing: your attention. And if your attention is constantly divided, your writing will be too. Because the truth is still this: you cannot build a serious writing life in fragments. So here's the habit for this week: protect one block of writing time. No notifications, no advice videos, no audience, just you and the work. Because the writers who finish books are rarely the most visible ones. They're the ones who protected their attention long enough to go deep. Hey, if you're new here and looking for tips on writing, building sustainable writing habits, and encouragement to finish your manuscript, I'm so glad we found each other. I'll be here every Tuesday with a new episode, so make sure you follow or subscribe so you don't miss out. And if this episode encouraged you, share it with another writer friend who might need the reminder. Until next time, happy writing, my friends. Again, my name is Portia Lee Vett, and this is Habits of a Writer.